Time once again for the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast with you as always from the NFL Network, NFL.com. Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell from the Kansas City Star. My name is Soren Petro from Sports Radio 810 WHB. A little exercise here in, well, basically predicting the future. We're taking a look ahead as to who will be the 8 Chiefs that'll still be on this roster in 29. Where did we get 8? There are 8. We can also throw in the fact that Harrison Butker and James Winchester are on the roster, but 8 of the position players, the 22, that are still on this roster from 4 years ago. That's right. That's how much an NFL roster turns over. So we've put pen to paper, or at least finger to keyboard, and come up with the 8 guys that we think will still be on this team. Think about the turnover that happens. It's 45 of your 53 that turns over every 4 years. We're trying to figure it out. We do that next here on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast.
You are listening to the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Chiefs on planet Earth, breaking down the Chiefs like no one else can. Red, Gold, and Bold is hosted by Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro. Jeff Chadiha is a senior columnist and on-air personality for the NFL Network and NFL.com. Sam McDowell is a columnist for the Kansas City Star. Soren Petro is the afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. The Red, Gold, and Bold podcast is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. Now, here are the hosts of the Best Chiefs podcast, Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro.
Thank you very much, Curtis. Off and running here on a Tuesday night, 9:30 If you're catching us via the podcast, that's when you can catch us live. You can be a part of the conversation. I already got a number of people in the comment section putting in their thoughts here. You can be a part of it. Tuesday nights, 9:30 p.m., Fridays at 10 a.m. Guys, we're trying to predict who the 8 players are that'll still be here. So that's through 4 seasons. 25 will be played, 26, 27, 28. Those 4 seasons will be done, right? You'll be headed into 29. The draft will have come. You will have had to have made decisions on whether or not you're sticking with this year's draft class. The second rounders, you'd have the 5th-year option on the first-round pick in Josh Simmons. Takeaway, what'd you learn from going through the exercise, Jeff?
I learned there probably weren't as many difficult choices as I thought there might be.
Okay.
I think we'll probably disagree on a couple of these, but I think overall, I spent more time trying to figure out, okay, who's going to be super expensive in 4 years. I had to go back and really check people's birthdays because I didn't realize some people were a little older than I thought that they actually were. But ultimately, my formula was cost versus who's going to be in the 30-year range by that point. So for me, it was a process of elimination from there. That's how I approached it.
Yeah, I same thought. I mentioned to Sam today on the radio show. We're talking about some things. I said, yeah, we did a little exercise getting ready for this, and started learning everybody's birthdays. You know, I can get my cards together on when to send guys' birthdays because, like, okay, how old will this guy be? Because they do love their young, their youth. I mean, that's one of the things. If Patrick Mahomes is a common theme in all their championships. Andy Reid is a common theme, but they also keep a younger roster. It's something that they certainly, make a priority when it comes to acquiring players. Sam, what was your takeaway?
Well, when you first suggested this exercise, I thought certainly there's going to be more than 8 players, and I still think probably there will be more than 8. But when you look at it on a player-by-player basis, there's maybe only 3 guys I would say have like a 60% chance or better that individually I'd pick. Now, collectively, when you've got 5 more that or 6 or 7 more that have like a 40% chance, yes, odds are almost half of those guys are going to be joining the group. But you can start to see why it turns over to the significant degree it does when you actually go through a player by player basis which is what this exercise forced the three of us to do.
Yeah, people are wondering, like, oh, that can't be the case. Listen, I'm just going to give you, here are all the wide receivers, right? So this is this time of year when they're fattening the roster to go through a training camp and everything. Here are the names of all the wide receivers that are on the roster. This is May 2nd of 2021, right? Tyreek Hill, Byron Pringle, Marcus Kemp, Maurice French, Antonio Callaway, McCole Hardman, Joe Fortson, Dalton Schoen, Chad Williams, Tajay Sharp, DeMarcus Robinson, Garrick Dieter, and Cornell Powell. Right?
Cornell Powell's been here that long?
Yeah. Cornell Powell's been here that long. Cornell Powell's not here anymore. He may be back before it's all said and done, but he's not here anymore. So they give you an idea. There are 0 wide receivers that are still here. The guys that are still on this roster are heavy from that rookie draft class, and the fact that they re-signed him. Trey Smith is still on this team. Creed Humphrey is still on this team. They were both from that rookie draft class. Noah Gray is still on this team. Patrick Mahomes is still on this team. And I think, and Travis Kelce, right? Those are your 5 offensive players. 3 defensive players are still on this team from just 4 years ago. Chris Jones is still here. Derek Nottie is still here. And Nick Bolton, again, a rookie in that class.
Nottie's gone.
Nottie's gone.
Not Nottie. I'm sorry. I said Nottie. I meant I was looking at I said Nottie. It's not Nottie. It's
it just feels like he's still here.
Mike Dana.
Okay, yeah, because Pinnell left and came back.
Is Pinnell?
That might have been the year he wasn't here.
He was not on the roster.
He left and came back. You just thought Nottie would never leave.
That is true. By the way, that draft class that year: Nick Bolton, Creed Humphrey, Josh Kando, Noah Gray, Cornell Powell, Trey Smith. Right, and so it is kind of amazing how many of those guys are still here, right? Because you can even go, like, you go 1 year earlier, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Willie Gay, Lucas Niang, L'Jarius Sneed, Mike Dana, Arcarius Keys. One guy, just to go back one more year. So it does turn over quick. And I would venture to say, if I went back and looked at last year and said, okay, let me go back a year, I'm not convinced that it is, because I've done this a number of times. I remember going back and looking at it, going back to like the Eddie Kennison days. And it was 8-9, right? Like it is amazing how fast these NFL rosters turn over. I really don't think people realize just, how much they turn and burn. Like
it's 30% a year on average.
Yeah.
A third of the roster.
I mean, like when you look at the finances and, like you said, I think one of the things, Sam and Jeff, like when you grind through it, you're like, okay, I do see what they start to run into, what starts to be, part of the deal as to why it is that way. The system kind of forces you to do it, but it's not for the faint of heart, because they're changing out players on a regular basis. All right, let's dive in. Do we want to just go, offense and defense? Do we want to go easiest name? How do you want to go about revealing your choices? Sam, I know you ranked yours, right? 1 through 8.
I did,
most likely.
Yeah, I ranked mine 1 through 8.
You want to lead off and take ahead, and we'll go. I could do mine 1 through 8 as well.
Sure. I think we all should have the same number 1. It's the only player who's actually under contract.
That's right, Josh Simmons,
in 2029.
Gardner Minshew.
Josh Simmons.
Patrick, but that speaks to this exercise. And I meant to do this and just sort of ran out of time to do it. But I wondered, like, how many other teams would have 2 players? Like, how many teams does any team have 3 players under contract in 2029 for now? But Patrick Mahomes is the only player who's under contract with the Chiefs in 2029.
I bet the Bengals, just having signed those 2 wide receivers, along with Joe Burrow,
Lamar Jackson,
probably. Yeah. I mean,
only Burrow and Chase are for the Bengals.
Okay. Ravens, I doubt it. I'll bet Lamar is the only guy. I mean, I think
he did a 3-year deal, didn't he? He did a 3 or 4 year deal.
Oh, yeah. It couldn't have been.
Look at this with because the Bills had a bunch of void years. So the Bills have tons of guys because they had all sorts of void years with their guys.
Okay.
So Joey Bosa's under contract with the Bills in 2029. He basically signed a 1-year deal.
I will give you the Ravens. Let's see if they do voided years. multi-year. So 429. Yeah, Lamar Jackson is into a void year. He's under contract 25, 6, and 7.
They've got nobody everyone's under everyone they have is void years.
Yeah.
They don't have anyone that's actually making money that year.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yep.
Yeah, it'd be a hard time. He might be the only one.
Wow.
Even Lamar's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, even they don't have anyone who's not just counting because of a void year. It looks like I think maybe AJ Brown and Juergens are for the Eagles. You've got two guys on the Eagles, but the Eagles have 15 guys on void years.
Yeah. I love Terry says Veach will not let the roster get old. Hank Stram going old school here. Biggest downfall, sticking with the old guys.
John Dorsey too. I mean, that might be why John Dorsey's not the GM of this era.
Well, it's also worth questioning: is Andy Reid going to be here 4 years from now? May affect who we choose.
I think it's a fair question. I mean, I think it's right in about the realm of when I think he will be thinking about it. Right? Like that's a good one. Would you put Andy Reid still there in 29, Sam?
So I asked Andy Reid at the owners' meetings whether or not he felt like he was close, and he gave a similar answer to what he's given publicly a lot. This was, the owners' meeting, I think, was the last day in March. And then I said, is there a scenario where you can envision yourself coaching the entirety of Patrick Mahomes' contract? And he goes, ooh, that's a long time. And so I do think we'll see Patrick Mahomes outlast Andy Reid in Kansas City. And that's really sort of the first even endpoint that I think he's acknowledged at all might be a stretch. So I agree with you that I think for sure the next 2 years make a lot of sense for Andy Reid. Beyond that, I think is when we actually could start to get into the conversation.
I really do feel like if you're predicting him not to be here, not to be coaching this football team in 29, you are predicting a health problem. I've said it a million times on a million different stations. And so he's like, well, Andy Reid, you think he is not giving it up until he physically can't do it. That's
his family likes him doing it. The funny story he actually added that I should have mentioned is, of course, every Super Bowl that we're at, it comes up that somebody has reported that Andy Reid might retire. And at one of those instances, I think it was not this last year, but the year before, one of his grandkids came up to him and said, so we're not going to be famous anymore? And it's a joke, but his family really supports this. His wife supports this. One of his sons is now on the coaching staff. His family supports him doing this. And a lot of times that can be what pulls you away eventually. And he's already in the grandfather mode.
Yeah. No, listen, I go back to when he first came to town. I had the first one-on-one interview with him after he did his press conference, and I said, Coach, look, and he'd gone through the loss of a son. They'd ended really bad with the Eagles. I said, a lot of people are saying, hey, take a year, recharge your batteries. And he said, I'm a football coach. It's what I do. Let's roll. And gave you that look like, we're not talking about this anymore. This is it. This is the only answer. Next question.
Yeah.
It was like the first time I got the stare or something he didn't necessarily really like. But, I mean, he was adamant.
He was also chasing a legacy then. The legacy that he would have ended with at that point would have been much different than
I think that's a fair point. I think it's a fair point to say that, oh, well, times have changed and now he's got success. But I don't think so. I mean, I think Joe Paterno and Bear Bryant and those guys had great success as well, and they coached right up until they physically became unhealthy. And I'm not saying he's going to coach right up and he'll be dead within a year, which I think both those guys were, or within a year or two. But I could see where he has to get a hip replacement or something to where he physically I don't see him. I remember when Charlie Weiss was the offensive coordinator for a while, he was on a little scooter out of practice. I don't see Andy Reid doing that. I think if he, if his legs give out and he can't get to and from the practice field and that kind of thing, then I think he'll step away.
You also run the risk of having it not end the way you want to end either. Very few coaches walk away. The ones who walk away usually walk away with the legacy intact. The ones who stay too long can end like Bill Belichick.
Yeah. That's fair. I'm trying to think of somebody I mean, by the definition of stayed too long, you're talking about somebody who's. But is there somebody
Coaches until they just can't do it anymore.
Yeah, I mean,
he's going to be close to 70. He'll be 70, right, at that point.
I think it was,
and he's a large man at 70.
Yeah, I agree. Bear Bryant's last bowl game was the Liberty Bowl. It wasn't the Sugar Bowl for the national championship. I mean, Eddie Robinson and Grambling had fallen a long, long way.
I'm just saying NFL. I mean, it's not even anyone close to him in the NFL who's
who
outside of Belichick.
Belichick, Tom Landry. Tom Landry was down.
He left under bad circumstances.
Yeah, I mean,
what's fascinating about this, because we'll start talking about the players here, is that as much as we're guaranteeing Mahomes being there, Peyton Manning played his year 34 in Denver. Russell Wilson played year 34 in Denver. Like, there's no guarantee.
No, there's
much
not.
as we think Mahomes will be here.
Yeah, I think it's a fair point, but I think the other difference that is fair is that he got a hold of his Hall of Fame quarterback at a later age.
Yep.
So, like, when Bill Belichick was hanging up, Tom Brady was gone, right? Like, which is to your point, Jeff. There's no guarantee. Like, could Patrick Mahomes be like, "Listen, you keep drafting defensive guys, I'm out," right? Because that was pretty much Tom Brady's MO. But he was gone. Tom Landry had lost Roger Staubach, and even Danny White was gone. I mean, he was starting Quincy Carter, I think, towards the end, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't underestimate the power of having the best quarterback in the league to keep you going too.
Well, to Jeff's point on Mahomes, was there anybody on this list that we'll get to? I guess on number 2, I'd be interested in what percentage.
No, wait, first of all, we all have Patrick Mahomes at the top.
Yeah.
What
I was going to say is, for number 2, I'll be interested when you guys reveal the second on your list, what percentage chance you would give it that they'll be here in 4 years, because that's what I found in doing this exercise. So once I got to like 5, I was like, I'm below 50% now as I rank these guys. Like, it's still my 5th highest percentage, but I only had maybe 3 or 4 that I thought I'd take that at 55% or better.
Well, yeah, some of that falls into the category of what are they going to cost, because there's some guys
all
on
of
this
it,
list
a lot of it,
who you could see the money really being crazy for what they offer.
I don't know, with the way they're operating right now. Like, they seem to keep every expensive guy. Like, they seem to have absolutely settled into the Stars and Jags approach. Like,
they haven't had to pay an expensive premier position guy.
Not premium position, yes. And a lot of these guys that are on our list that we'll get to are premium position players that would cost a lot more.
Well, I think George Karlaftis and Trent McDuffie are going to be really interesting, because I think they won them both. I don't know if they're going to keep them both. And then how do they handle that? I think it's going to be really interesting, and how you guys handle those guys on this list.
Yep.
Rasheed Rice is interesting.
Rasheed Rice. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
They're premium position players.
All right. So, Sam, what do you want to do? How, you want to go to number 2, or you want to give you your list and we'll tear it apart as to what you did wrong?
No, I'll go number 2. I had Creed Humphrey number 2. He'll only be 29. And we've seen that the example of the Chiefs' willingness to actually play players into their 30s, or if they feel like they're their best at their positions. And Creed Humphrey qualifies for that. Jason Kelce played until he was 36 at that position, although he did start talking about retirement, probably 33, 34 years old. But he'll be 29 going on 30. And so I think he will qualify for that exception that they make to pay guys into their 30s. So he's number 2 on my list.
So he's your Chris Jones.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll take that. All right. Number 2 on my list is Xavier Worthy. Age, 1, he's going to be in his prime. They love the speed guy. I also think he's going to be good, but not great. So I think he's going to come in at a price that is affordable. Like, he's not going to be asking for number 1 wide receiver, like the highest wide receiver contract. So I see a scenario where it works with Xavier Worthy. He'll be 25 years old. That's right in the wheelhouse of what we just saw happen with Bolton and everybody else. So I think there's a pretty good chance that Xavier Worthy is kept. So I got Xavier Worthy number 2 on my list. Jeff, I know you didn't do it this way, but if you eyeballed it, who would be number 2 on your list?
I'd take Nick Bolton too, because I think he'll still be young enough to command a 3rd contract. I think they clearly made a statement about what he means to this defense. Now, maybe if Steve Spagnuolo's gone, maybe there's a different vibe about what he brings to the table, and maybe he doesn't meet somebody else's demands for the position. But right now, to me, he's the safest bet for number 2 because I'm shocked that he's here now and what they paid him. So they obviously like him and believe in the culture. And of the 3 guys on defense, he's always going to be the cheapest.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. I think
that's a far departure from where I have him. I'll say that.
Okay. All right. Number 3 on your list, Sam.
I've got Trent McDuffie, number 3. And this is a tough one because after this year, you're going to be paying his 5th-year option. Usually that's when you supersede it with a contract extension. I feel like you're giving yourself a couple options here, though. Either he's good enough to sign a 3rd contract, or his contract that he gets paid for a 2nd contract is long enough to carry into the 2029 season. The flip side of that is there's a couple outs for him too. There's no guarantee the Chiefs are going to work out something with Trent McDuffie this offseason to even get a 2nd contract out of Trent McDuffie. So that's why I said when you do this exercise and you go player by player, you can find the holes in every argument for these players. But I just think when I rank these guys, he's 3rd on the list. I think he's a cornerstone piece for him.
That's interesting because so did you change that from what you sent me or?
No, I've got him 3rd.
Okay.
Well, I don't think I sent you them in order.
Oh, all right. Then that's what it is. I was like, oh, okay, boy.
I sent you
got a separate file you're working off of here.
I sent Soren offense and defense.
Okay. So yeah.
Why are we doing offense and defense then?
Yeah. That's you're the one who said you did it by rankings. And
I did do it by ranking, but then you asked me to send it by offense and defense because that's the way you guys did. I thought the rankings was interesting because I did think it spoke to the fact that when you move down the list, you're like, I'm putting somebody on the list who I actually don't think is going to be here in 4 years.
Okay. All right. That takes us to what? My number 3, or Jeff? Have you done number 3?
No, I haven't. I just did 2.
Okay.
Who was your 2? Oh, Xavier Worthy was your 2nd.
Xavier Worthy's my 2nd. Yeah. And so Trent McDuffie's 2 for Sam, which I think is interesting because I think the cornerback question. First of all, everyone said, well, they never draft a corner high. And Brett Veach kept saying that year, and then they ultimately took Trent McDuffie. We never had the opportunity. And I think they never keep a corner. I would say the same thing. They haven't had the opportunity. A 27-year-old guy with bad knees last year, and L'Jarius Sneed, was not the opportunity. I mean, that was a no-brainer to walk away from it. I think Trent McDuffie's going to look a lot more attractive. I think there's a pretty good chance that he gets it. And I think also the fact that he is – I'm not sure what price he's going to ask for, right? Isn't that what makes it tricky here? What is he? Is he one of the best corners in football, or is he just a good slot guy?
He's a good slot guy.
Yeah, that like I said, I mean that's why I ordered because all these guys are tricky once you get past. I was pretty confident with Creed Humphrey at number 2. Yeah. I'm better than 50-50 with Trent McDuffie at number 3. Beyond this, and I'm like I said, I'm interested in your guys' percentages on the number 3 guys that you mentioned.
Okay,
I'm going Creed Humphrey 3.
Yeah. So Jeff, you went Creed Humphrey number 3.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a solid pick as well. Because I also went Creed Humphrey at number 3 for all the reasons that we heard from Sam, right? Jeff, I don't want to steal your thunder. Why Creed Humphrey number 3 on yours?
Again, I think he's a cornerstone piece. I think signing him to the biggest contract any center's ever gotten is a huge statement about what they think of him and how important he is to them. I think he'll still be within the right age for it to work. And again, it's a position that is going to be cheaper than other ones to work out. So they don't have as much of a discussion about it. I think that you start talking about receivers and corners and pass rushers, it becomes a lot more difficult of a conversation.
Well, and one other piece, and sorry to cut in your string because I didn't mention it, but Jeff just said something that prompted a thought is it might sometimes when guys get paid once at the maximum of their position, they don't have that same demand the second time. They've earned that title at some point, and they don't necessarily feel like they've got to earn it again.
I think that's that they mail it in to a degree. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm just saying in the contract negotiations, for example, like it was important for Chris Jones to reach a certain threshold when he entered those contract negotiations. He had never been the highest paid player at his position, by the way, because Aaron Donald was always there. Creed Humphrey just cleared the field at center as far as his contract. Like, he's already earned that title as being the highest paid center in the league. I think when these sides come to the negotiation table and his contract runs through the year prior, through 2028, although, by the way, the Chiefs have a really easy out after 2027 with him. But I just think I don't know that the demand to, hey, I want to be the highest paid center is going to be there for somebody who's already had that title in the past.
And I think, guys, this is my thinking with Bolton as well. I think those two guys really like being in Kansas City. I think it really means a lot of guys, people think all these dudes love being where they're at. I think this is true of these two guys. Like, your money is not as important as being a part of this franchise and what they've accomplished here.
I think that's a fair point. I mean, but I also think guys like winning championships. You can definitely do that in Kansas City. I think that's a big part of it. When it comes to taking care of your parking lot, nobody does it better than Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Locally owned and making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Let Gann educate you about the most cost-effective way to solve your parking lot problems. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews. Every project comes with a written warranty. Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. Northland Injury Law, Kansas City's Google 5-star rated personal injury lawyers, serving KC for more than 40 years, voted Kansas City's #1 accident lawyers, helping people with serious injuries from car accidents, work accidents, falls, and other personal injuries. Northland Injury Law doesn't get paid unless they get money for their client. Don't wait, get compensated now. If you have a case, text HURT to 22222. That's HURT to 22222, or call 816-400-HURT. That's 816-400-4878. The choice of a lawyer is an important one and should not be based solely upon advertisements. All right, number 4 on your list, Sam. Where do you go for number 4?
Yeah, this might be where it dips below 50% for me, but I've got Josh Simmons 4th. Okay. And this is not actually a commentary on what I think Josh Simmons is going to be. It's more of the commentary of how difficult the path is for everyone else. Because the reason for Josh Simmons for me is simple. Outside of Patrick Mahomes being under contract, by far the easiest path to anybody being on the roster in 2029 is Josh Simmons. It's a 5th-year option. There's no contract required. It's just pick up his 5th-year option. So because of that, he's got the path of least resistance to being Kansas City in 5 years. I think that's how he lands 4th on my list.
It is just a 5th-year option, and I have Josh Simmons next as well on my list for that exact same reason. But I will point out, he's the 32nd pick in the draft, and less than 50% of first-round picks get their 5th-year option.
That's why I said it dips below 50% for me.
Well, I mean, and that's also just your assessment of the player, the injury risk, all those kind of things. But I'm just saying, like, usually there isn't a guy coming off a patella tendon injury in this.
Yeah.
So you're about healthy football players that clearly the team thought highly of when they drafted them, and less than 50% of them get that 5th-year option picked up. So it does. I mean, look, they're going to keep somebody, and maybe that's the thing. Maybe we go through this. You think there's going to be more than this, Sam? I would be willing to bet you that it will be less.
Yeah.
It's more likely to be less than 8 than it is more than 8.
I think I found, well, let's see. I've got 8, and maybe at the end here we can mention all the guys that were kind of close cuts for us, but I had
I've got a list there
five other close cuts that I think I'd have at least
5?
A 1 in 3 shot. So I had like 13 total guys that I think probably have at least like a 35% chance. Just when you do the math on that, I think you're probably looking at closer to I don't know, especially when I had better than 50% on the top 3. Maybe 8's right, but I think somewhere 8 to 10. I would guess 9 before I'd guess 7, I guess.
I'd be happy to wager, if you want to make a 4-year wager, that it'll be 7. It's 9. We'll figure out. We'll negotiate the terms later. Who's number 4 on your list, Jeff?
McDuffie. He's tricky for all the reasons we just mentioned about what does he really do? How does he really fit into the structure with all the other highly paid corners? And we still haven't seen Sauce Gardner get his big deal yet. So that number's going to keep going up. Well, it was Derek Stingley and J.C. Horn right now.
Yeah, I was just saying we've seen Horn get his, and I'm not sure.
He's the outside guy.
Yeah, I mean, that's what to me makes McDuffie like why he's not higher on my list. You know?
Yeah. Well, I'm going there just because I think they'll try to find a way. What's a little bit worrisome for me is that who have they paid in the secondary? Who's come in here in the last since Brett Veach has been general man? No one's has gotten a deal, right? A second deal out of the secondary, and so you start looking at guys like the Jaden Hicks of the world and people like that, who I'm sure Sam may have mentioned in his bottom 5 of his list. It's not reassuring, but I have to imagine they're going to make a run him because Spagnuolo loves him. He's a first-round pick. It would look really bad to not get something done with him. So I imagine they're going to find a way to make it work. I just don't know what it's going to look like financially.
I can't stress enough how much I think the Horn contract may be the reason why Trent McDuffie's not back. Like Horn,
I totally agree with you on that. Yeah.
Like, what do you give Sauce Gardner?
I mean, we saw it with Devontae Adams was the reason Tyreek Hill's wasn't back. I mean, they were ready to sign Tyreek Hill, top of the market wide receiver money, until that top of the wide receiver market changed drastically, and suddenly Tyreek Hill was traded to Miami.
Yeah, I mean, I can't. Trent McDuffie's better than Horn, right?
No,
so the
not.
starting point to me is north of that.
You think Horn's better?
No, I think Trent McDuffie's better.
Well, Jeff
Horn can do more. He's an outside corner.
Yeah, I think, but McDuffie played outside this past year. I mean,
he had some struggles. He's better in the slot.
He is better in the slot, but I don't know that I would say he struggled. I mean, there were guys he shot. I mean, Jamar Chase had a fit against him. I didn't think he struggled.
They roll safeties over him. The idea that Jamar Chase is getting shut down by anybody's safeties are over the top when he's getting shut down.
He wasn't good in the Super Bowl. I mean, he did not have a good day against the Eagles. I thought it was one of his worst outings of the year. But
Cortland got after him pretty good in that Denver game.
Listen, he's not a top 5 corner, but he's a top 20 corner.
Yeah. Well, put it this way: if he was that good, he'd be paid by now. If he was better than J.C. Horn, he'd be paid by now.
Well, he can't be. He couldn't be paid until now. Like, he's only 3 years in, so this is the first off season that you can extend him.
Well, J.C. Horn is the same situation.
I think it's preposterous. I think because somebody else makes a dumbass deal doesn't mean you're wrong for not getting to dumbassville first.
Yeah, no, I'm not arguing that what Carolina did makes a ton of sense.
Horn was
I
the year
understand
before,
it from the
right?
standpoint. What?
Wasn't Horn 21?
He might have.
Yeah, Horn was the year before.
Hurt.
J.C. Horn was 2021 with Surtain, and then
you're right.
Duffy's 2020.
Right. Yeah, he was the 8th pick in the draft when he came out. Because who was with McDuffie when he came out? Was it he was out with Sauce?
Stingley and
Sauce.
And Sauce, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
So I mean, we're gonna see their numbers and like
will we though? Won't those guys want? I mean, those guys I think have the better argument to top McDuffie, right? Wouldn't those guys like? I don't know that McDuffie has the privilege of waiting on the Sauce Gardner deal, for example.
I agree.
And the Stingley deal, I think.
Well, but don't you think that that's what makes Trent McDuffie tricky? Is because I don't think Jeff's. I think there are many people in the NFL that share Jeff's thoughts about he's a slot guy, right? I think we're kind of, we're arguing over the last 5 or 10% of what we all think about him. And, like ideally, yes, I think you love him in the slot. You love his ability to blitz. You love what he can do. But I think if you are a bad team and maybe even a team that's was god awful 2 years ago and you've started the ascension and you're looking for a veteran guy and you don't have a number 1 corner, like if McDuffie gets to the market, he'll be the best corner on the market. Like who's better, Charvarius Ward hitting the market coming from Kansas City or Trent McDuffie next year or 2 years from now? It's Trent McDuffie. And so anyone better than Trent McDuffie never seems to get to the market.
It's better than J.C. Jackson was.
Yeah. And so that's why I think it's going to be real interesting.
That's what happened to J.C. Jackson, too. You saw what happened to him when he actually got paid big money and had to be number 1 corner. He couldn't do it.
That's fair point. Yes, and that's why I think like it's going to need a special team. It's going to need a team that's in exactly the right situation to say we're going to blow the market up for this guy because we know we're going to get a dependable. Like, listen, the one thing you don't get what J.C. Jackson brought off the field with Trent McDuffie. I mean, you don't really know someone unless you live with them. But by all accounts, there's never been any headaches with Trent McDuffie whatsoever.
Absolutely the best guy in that locker room.
So if you overpay Trent McDuffie, it's at least not going to blow up on you. So I can see the scenario where the Chiefs are like, listen, you're really good, but you're not right here. And somebody else go, we'll pay up here because it doesn't blow up in our face. So that to me was why Trent McDuffie, he is on my list, I'll just tell you, but he's further down because I'm not convinced the stars will line up for them being on the same page.
Yeah.
Like I can see the Chiefs being like, just like he's losing $5 million because he didn't make a Pro Bowl, even though he's a 2-time All-Pro. Right? Like that's
who did you have fourth? Who did you have fourth on your list?
me or Jeff? I have Josh Simmons.
Okay.
Jeff, who do you have?
I had
McDuffie. Yeah,
You got
McDuffie.
McDuffie.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I think I said,
I've
my other
got-
point about McDuffie was that generally when you're a really good corner in this league, you get paid early. Like you look at Patrick Surtain, you look at Stingley, you look at Denzel Ward in Cleveland. Like if you show you can do it, they're going to pay you right away and they're going to lock you up. And so the Chiefs probably have that same feeling about him.
everyone's always talked about how the linebackers are like the running backs. They're the guys you don't have to pay. You keep. I think corners make a bigger impact than the linebackers, but I think they get old at like 28.
Yeah, but some of those, like McDuffie, I think could play elsewhere too. If worse comes to worse, like obviously you don't want to pay another position that size, but we also see those guys move. I mean, Patrick Peterson's stuck in the league a long time playing other spots. I think McDuffie will be that guy, even if that's not what you're going to pay him. I totally agree with that point.
I'm with you on the toughness and the smarts. I think McDuffie may have maybe more Rod or Charles Woodson and like have a second career as a safety.
I totally think that's possible with him. I agree.
And blossom there. All right, number 5 on your list, Sam.
Xavier Worthy. You mentioned him. I think you had him, second? Something interesting when I looked up Xavier Worthy to me that I'll just add real quick is, so the comp for picking Xavier Worthy to be there would be looking at 4 years ago in the 21 draft class and saying, okay, who got a second contract out of that group? There were 4 wide receivers that had a better rookie year in 2021 than what Xavier Worthy did last year. It happened to be that they had clearly better years, which was Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. And those guys all got a second contract. They're all still with the same team. And by the way, those 4 guys are among the 12 highest paid receivers in the game. Now, of course, when those rookie contracts come up, that's going to happen. Like they're the ones who reset the market this last offseason. But the guy below him that only had 446 yards and 1 touchdown as a rookie was Nico Collins. He's the 13th highest paid receiver in the league because he was from that draft class. We saw Joshua Palmer from that draft class have 350 yards as a rookie, only 33 catches. He's not with the same team, but even he got paid this last offseason. So I think there's an argument for Xavier Worthy is going to get paid by somebody. Is it going to be the Chiefs? Because as much as that seems like it's an argument for putting him on the list, when I saw Nico Collins, 13th highest paid wide receiver, I was like, ooh, could this be what it costs to keep a talent like Xavier Worthy? That would be hard to stomach.
Yeah, I do think it is, like I said earlier, I think that there is kind of an element to Xavier Worthy that's similar to Trent McDuffie. Does he have the same self-worth as what the Chiefs put the value on him? Like I don't think the market, I don't think a 165-pound guy. You can look at Devonta Smith. The Eagles are president of the let's sign him early club. And I think a lot of people went, whoa, you're paying Devonta Smith this much? And I think that's the closest comp to Xavier Worthy, just because of body type. I don't think there's going to be a giant market to say, let's go give a 160-pound guy all this money. And there's also the fact of, does he even make it, right? Because he is still so small. I think that's part of the equation as well. All right, so that was Sam, number
5, Xavier
5
Worthy.
on you. Who's number 5 for you, Jeff?
Same guy. Same guy. And I mean, I look at it's either Xavier Worthy or Rashee Rice. And if you look at what receivers are getting paid right now, I think they're not going to be very comfortable with paying Rashee Rice somewhere in the ballpark of $40 million when he's in a situation to actually start getting a new deal. So Xavier Worthy, I have paused for the same reasons you guys do. He's small. I think he's got to show more variety in his game, but I think being a first-round pick, he'll be around. He'll probably get the fifth-year option. And he may be the guy where they say, you know what, let's make it work. Let's see what we can do with him. Let's see if we can take less than, top-end dollars, which for receivers is going to be, by that point, like $50 million a year. So, but I think I'm with Sam at this point. I'm like just taking flyers on guys. So Xavier Worthy's the safest bet.
Yeah.
It's what it is. I mean, it's like I don't feel comfortable saying that he's going to be here.
What you're saying is what I said when I picked Simmons is that to me was the time I reached below 50%. I would not bet this on the open market, and that's I think where you're saying you are with number 5 with Xavier Worthy.
I don't disagree at all because my number 5 is Trey Smith, and I think he is a candidate to be cut the first time he becomes cheaper to cut than keep. Yeah. And because I think it was listen, if they love Trey Smith, he'd have been signed when they signed Creed Humphrey. I mean, that's the one thing. I mean, that just pops on you. And I think it's somewhat of a questionable decision as well. Like, I think you can make a case that I'm not sure. Like I said today, like, I don't know that it would end up any worse or really any different if they had traded him and kept Joe Thuney. I like the strategy of always going with the younger guy because the younger guy is more likely to be healthy. So I have no problem with their decision. But I mean, it's $17.5 million for Joe Thuney, with the Bears giving him 2 for $35 million, playing this year for 16, and they don't have to carry his signing bonus and all the restructures and everything that the Chiefs had that bloated his cap number to where it was, that made him by far, from giving you flexibility, the guy to move. But you could have reworked that deal, backloaded the contract, extended it, and kept him and maybe gotten a higher draft pick. We talked about this today, Sam and I, but Trey Smith, I don't know how much a team – I'm hearing he's going to get $23 million per. Like the number that he's got right now on the franchise tag is going to be the APY on it. That's too much, to be honest with you. But for a 25-year-old, guard, and, that's very good, and then to know you've got him in place – that's what you're paying for. So, but I've got Trey Smith, and I'm with you guys in the sense that it starts to get kind of questionable here. Like, I do think there's going to be, like I said, I think that that's one of the reasons why I think there's more likely to be less than 8 than actually 8 in this category. All right, number 6, Sam. Who's number 6 on your list?
Yeah, so you'll see why I wanted to rank these guys here, because I don't think that 5 and 6 will happen, but I'm not guaranteeing 5. So I've got Rashee Rice at 6. I've got Worthy and Rice on my list, and I don't think there's a scenario where both of these happen. I'm just, protecting basically that Worthy doesn't happen. Maybe Rice gets paid first, and that affects Xavier Worthy, though. His question marks are, of course, a lot different variety than Xavier Worthy. I also think he'll cost more, but he's well liked in that room, and when I say that, I mean by his teammates. And Jeff said it last time. Like, I'm below the threshold where I'm predicting guys who I actually think will be on this roster in 4 years.
Okay, 6 for you, Jeff.
Josh Simmons.
Okay,
I think they want to make it work. The only way it's not going to work, I think, in some capacity, is if he's just, that knee is a real problem for him. So I'm going to bet on him being healthy and either finding a spot as a left tackle or a right tackle. Either way, I think, again, the first round pick, if you're Brett Veach and you're trying to justify picks to your boss, Clark Hunt, you want to feel good about signing a guy to a second contract. To me, any first round pick you're not signed to a second contract was a bad first round pick. And so there's no way it really cuts otherwise for Brett Veach in the situation. So I think Josh Simmons with the 5th-year option or the second-year deal is going to be here.
All right. George Karlaftis, number 6 for me. And I think there's a better chance that people think of him not being back with the Chiefs, because I think this is another one. What is he? Right?
Yeah. He's not on my list.
Is he about ready to become Trey Hendrickson? right?
No,
Like,
no.
well, look at Trey Hendrickson's first 3 years.
Are you are you acting as his agent here?
No, I don't think he's about to become him. But I'm saying, because I remember when Trey Hendrickson was available, he'd finally broken out with a big year with the Saints, and he was my number one. Jeff can attest to this. He was my number one free agent that year, and I thought that the Chiefs should be going for him. But it was a little bit of leap of faith because he'd only had the one big year. So there is a history of guys like George Karlaftis that are try hard guys that don't give up, that finally kind of all the pass rush moves come together. I do also wonder how the sacks will look when Chris Jones doesn't just get to wander up and down the line of scrimmage and pick where he goes. Like, I wonder, is somebody going to emerge as a better pass rusher when, it doesn't seem to all start with Chris Jones? So I am kind of intrigued by that. But I think Karlaftis likes it in Kansas City. I think he knows what he's got. I don't think he, especially I could see the Karlaftis deal coming together maybe quicker than the McDuffie deal, because I think he's got way less room to say I'm the best at my position. McDuffie's got some leg to stand on, right? Or one of the best. I don't want to get hung up on the best. But I don't think George Karlaftis can be like, I'm the best edge rusher. So I think they could find a common ground on it. But edge rushers are really valuable. And, he if I'm wrong, he's like, no, I'm going to be the best pass rusher on the market, then he will get a big check to get out there. So I've got George Karlaftis at number 6. We still have number 7 and 8 to get to on the list. Who is 7 and 8? And then who did we just miss on? Who did we come close to putting on this list? We will do that after you hear from our friends. Did you know that Besame Wellness is now Suede Cannabis?
Big moves, bigger vibes. If you haven't heard, Besame Wellness is now Suede Cannabis. Our colors and name may have changed, but you'll still experience the same great service on top of better deals, longer hours, and faster delivery. Smithville, Liberty, Kansas City, Warrensburg, and North Kansas City. No matter which location you visit, you'll feel right at home. Find the location nearest you and shop online at SuadeCannabis.com. Life should be dope. Let's make it happen. Suede Cannabis.
Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Locally owned and making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Let Gann educate you about the most cost-effective way to solve your parking lot problems. With free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty, Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. All right, 7 and 8. Where do you come in, Sam, on number 7?
My most obscure pick, I've got Jeff Bossa at 7. And I feel like you've got to pick somebody from this rookie class to make it. And there's 2 reasons why I'm picking Bossa. First, because he'll be cheaper. His position will naturally be cheaper. And second, I think we learn what Steve Spagnuolo wants to prioritize on defense, which is smart players. And he was extremely impressive to the Chiefs in their pre-draft interview. He was really impressive in his first meeting with the media. In fact, as impressive as I've seen a rookie. And what's funny is the last 2 eligible classes to get second-year contracts is 2021. They signed their 5th-round pick with Noah Gray. 2020, they signed their 5th-round pick with Mike Danna for the exact same 2 reasons. They were both cheap and smart football players. I just think he has the best potential to fit that mold.
I had Jeffrey Bossa on my list and then took him off. So he's going to be on one of my close, but didn't quite make it for the reasons you said. Jeff, number 7 on your list.
Karlaftis.
Okay.
And you guys, made the point, or you did. Sam's not even on Sam's list, but I think he's a guy who wants to be here. It will be interesting to see how he values himself when he starts talking about a new deal. The bigger issue, I think, that involves him is just that the timing of it all, because Rashee Rice, McDuffie, and him are up at the same time. And so if you're Brett Veach, you can't hold on to everybody. You don't have 3 franchise tags, or you don't have those options. So it's just very easy to see him just walking out in a free agency without any real opportunity for the Chiefs to make a strong play for him. And so that's why, again, it's a tough one for me. He's low on my list for that reason, but I could easily see him just waiting it out, getting into free agency, and finding a huge deal with somebody else.
I think you make a good point. I think it's one of the reasons why Karlaftis might get done before we ever get to St. Joe this year, is so that they can, one, he'll sign on. They'll give him the guaranteed money to entice him to sign on, and the number will be maybe a little less, but it ramps them up to win Chris Jones. Like, if they get a deal done with George Karlaftis, I think you'll be able to go, yep, here's the last year for Chris Jones.
But is that Karlaftis deal going to take him into 2029? I mean, I think when you put Karlaftis on this list, you're predicting a 3rd contract, not a 2nd contract for George Karlaftis.
Well, I mean, if they don't get it done now, then it'll get done before next year, presumably. But they don't even have to get it done. They could wait through the 5th year. I don't think that'll be the case. So it's a fair point. I mean, if they don't do it until after this year, I think he'll get there.
I'm just saying that's why George Karlaftis is not on my list, is because I think you're actually predicting a 3rd contract for George Karlaftis when you put him on this list. Just like with McDuffie. I put McDuffie pretty high on this list, and I'm thinking maybe a 3rd contract, but I could see them going an extra year with McDuffie as opposed to a guy like George Karlaftis.
Okay. I think George Karlaftis has got a better chance to play at whatever his highest level for longer than Trent McDuffie does.
Do you really? Okay.
Yeah. I think but I don't think he's as good at his position as Trent McDuffie is at his. They're both scarce. They're both scarcities. I mean, the fact that they took that year picks 30 and 31 and then some other picks because they moved up to get Trent McDuffie and came away with a corner and an edge that are high quality, that is one of the more underrated things that this team has done.
Yeah. Well, and also Ashton Gelati is probably going to impact George Karlaftis
100%.
Sure.
A lot.
Yeah, 100%.
I think so as well. 7 on my list is Trent McDuffie. And the reason I just stated, I think, Karlaftis is more likely to, I think, have the same mindset of what his value is. And so I think the negotiations will be easier with Karlaftis than they will with McDuffie, because McDuffie has a better case to make. So that's the only reason. It's not because I think Karlaftis is a better player. I just stated I think McDuffie's better in his position than Karlaftis, but I think that makes it easier to get George Karlaftis signed. So I've got Karlaftis ahead of Trent McDuffie on my list. Number 8 for you, Sam.
I've got Chris Jones.
No shot.
I do. You'll have to stick with me on this, but his contract runs through 2028. So you're asking for an extra year, though I'd really say you're asking for 2, because they can save $35 million by cutting him after 2027. In which case you're saying he's got to stick around in 28 and 29. But what else is tucked into that contract is it costs you more than $9 million to cut him. Even if you save 35, you've got to eat $9 million. And we've seen the Chiefs have a familiar pattern in these situations, which is they try and restructure and add a year on. They did it with Sammy Watkins. They tried to do it with Frank Clark. They even tried to do it with Marquez Valdez-Scantling a year ago. They did it with Travis Kelce. And so we've seen Cameron Hayward play into his late 30s. Chris Jones would be 34. I just think that, first of all, he shows up in training camp in better shape every year. Seriously, he does. Showing up
I don't disagree.
Better shape every year. I've said this many times in this podcast, but I've got to hedge it again. I'm picking below 50% on all of these, but I do think he's got the 8th best chance on the team of being there for those reasons.
I rescind my no chance. You made a hell of a case. I rescind my no chance. Like, I like the way you laid it out. That I had not thought about hey, let's redo it for cap reasons. If he's still playing at a high level, but how much do you put into the fact that, like, I know pressures and hurries and all those things are better, but, like, the sacks weren't there this past year.
Yeah.
Well, and I think the bigger worry with Chris Jones, and I'm arguing against myself here, but where Chris Jones really excels and the reason he gets pressures is he's so quick off the line of scrimmage. And I'd be worried that explosiveness off the line of scrimmage is one of the things that leaves him. So somebody's mentioned something in the comments that I think is a name coming on one of your guys' list, but let's see where you guys go.
Let me see.
I could think that the most recent comment could be one of your guys' last two because it was number
being
9.
that you've seen our list, you're
It was
quite
it was number 9 for me.
I love that. Oh, I think it could be. We'll
Yeah.
just wait and see what my read is on the guys. I have a text with their list, so
You sent like 15 names. Let's be honest.
Yeah, but there's like the little the marks like
Okay, I got you.
where it says the missed the cut. Yeah. So that's where it didn't hold the grammar marks on it.
All right. Well, I've said a lot of below 50%, better than 50% chance that guy winds up on one of your guys' lists.
Yeah.
Number
ain't on mine.
Not on yours. Okay, number 8
Yeah.
for you then is
Trey Smith.
Trey Smith.
I mean, again, he's a young guy. I think he's going to be overpaid, and I do think they will hold that against him as time goes on. So, not crazy about it, but to me, they obviously made a point of bringing him back, holding on to him, paying him a good amount of money already. I think he's got the best shot. I mean, there's other guys that Jaden Hicks is out there and Jalen Royals, and we'll get into everybody else who could have made my list. But to me, Trey Smith they want him to be here. He's a big part of the offensive line. I think he's got a shot.
Well, Sam felt the need to take my, a little bit of an upset guy and, drape it around his neck. Jaden Hicks is number 8 for me. I think they do like him. I think he is young enough to get the contract. And I also think that the contract, I think there's the chance that the contract fits, that it's not as big as some of the other guys. And I think they would like to have, I don't think they mind moving on from Tyrann Mathieu, but I think it was a little bit harder this last time to move on from the safety. And I could see him, there is a little bit of like somebody's got to do it. And out of our just missed the list, to me, he's the guy that has the best chance of playing at a high level at a position of need.
A cheaper position, by the way. And that needs to be a center part of what you're saying here, because he's not going to be a $25 million cost.
Exactly. And so I've got Jaden Hicks at number 8. Missed the cut. What would you say, Jeff?
I'd say they've never kept a safety they've drafted, right? Juan Thornhill.
They haven't. And I think but I don't think that's by design. I don't think that's the plan. They've gone out and spent on safeties.
Yeah.
Right? They spent on Tyrann Mathieu. They spent on Justin Reid. So if Hicks is the guy, and I think he's pretty good. We all, let's start there. I think he's a good football player. So
like Shamari Connor 2 years ago too.
I think we know he's a safety. He's bigger. I could see him getting a second contract, playing down in the box more and that kind of thing. I think there's a much better path than Shamari Connor. But your point is well taken. Who just missed the cut, Sam?
A lot of the names you guys have mentioned, Jaden Hicks was 9th for me. That was the toughest cut for me. Karlaftis was probably 10th, and then rookies, beyond that, like Noah Williams, Jalen Royals. But, the couple names that you guys did mention that I didn't really consider as heavily, Jeff had Nick Bolton second on his list. I didn't really consider Nick Bolton all that heavily because health, first of all, has been an issue for him the last 2 years. We already question his ability to cover. And I think 4 years from now, like those questions are only going to magnify. And, if he's not a 3-down linebacker and you have to protect him, that's tough. And Trey Smith, I mentioned earlier, but you'd have to pay him into his 30s. And their bar so far, not that they can't break it, has been paying guys that they think are the absolute best at their positions. And I don't know that Trey Smith
I love how Sam's like
4 years.
Justifying get rid of Trey Smith because he'll be in his 30s, but let's play Chris Jones until he's 38.
Yeah.
Well, because I don't think you're paying him. I mean, that's kind of my point. Is I think you're only going to have to pay him you're only paying him 9. I think maybe you pay him an extra 5 or something and stretch that into a 2-year deal. Though, like I said, the way they did with some of these other guys, Trey Smith, I think at 29, he could get another multi-year deal. I just don't know that fits.
So Hicks, Karlaftis, Noel Williams, Jalen Royals. That's the ones that consider.
Those are the other guys that I considered. Yeah.
Okay. Jeff, you have anybody else you were considering that just missed the cut?
Jalen Royals, because I could see him being Rashee Rice's replacement. Hicks, because I do like him as a player. I think he's got potential. Bassa was a player who, for what Sam said, being a young linebacker, you have to figure Drew Tranquil's going to be gone, and he'll have opportunities there. And actually, Noah Gray. Noah Gray was a guy who I thought once Kelce is gone, if he's able to showcase himself as a true tight end, he's got a second contract already.
He's
he can
young.
be a player.
Like you don't realize he's kind of been
26,
around for a little while, but he's young. Yeah, I looked at Noah Gray and went, interesting. Like it will be interesting to see what he does when Travis Kelce walks away. I think that's interesting. My list of the other ones that just missed the cut. I have Rashee Rice as a consideration, Jalen Royals. I mean, I think we can all agree probably one of these three wideouts are going to be on here, right? Like if you just said wide receiver, like one of these three will probably make it. I have Jeffrey Bassa. I would probably. I don't mind the Nick Bolton as much. I think Bassa's got a better chance just off being. He's not that much younger, though. That's one of the things to keep in mind. But I do think that if Steve Spagnuolo is still the defensive coordinator, he likes his green dot guy, and I think he likes this guy a lot. So I think I think one of those linebackers could be there. I've got Noel Williams too. I mean, I think there's a decent chance that there's another corner and he could be cost effective. The other name that you didn't have, I do have Ashton Gelati, and if he's just George Karlaftis part 2 and he's just more signable, then I think you could land on him pretty easily, right? I think that could happen.
But Bassa is 2.5 years younger than Bolton. That's decent amount.
At 4 years into Bolton's career.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, Bolton came out at a much younger age. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's like you think like, okay, so one's, 23 and the other one's 27 or 22 and 26. And they're a little bit closer than I think than people would realize in their age. Yeah. So, I don't know. Fun exercise. I think it'll be interesting to see how we would change it next year, right? If we do it again. But interesting stuff. Listen, always interesting. Our friends that bring you the Red Gold and Bold podcast. You can support us by supporting our great sponsors like Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Free consultations, no commissions. In-house crews. If you own or manage a business, one contractor, all things parking lot. That's Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com. That's GannAsphalt.com. Also by our friends at Northland Injury Law. If you have a case, text HURT to 22222 or call 816-400-HURT. Kansas City's Google 5-star rated personal injury lawyers. That's Northland Injury Law. And our friends at Suede Cannabis. If you haven't heard, Best Me Wellness is now Suede Cannabis. Find the location nearest you and shop online right now at SuedeCannabis.com. For Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network, Sam McDowell from the Kansas City Star, I'm Soren Petro saying thank you very much for joining us here on the Red Gold and Bold podcast.